So if you take the percent of people who have issues with medical bills, take a look at how much productivity is lost there, and then spread that productivity across all employees. It averages out to about a week per employee of lost productivity.
Per employee.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Because if you have 50 employees, okay. If you have 50,000 employees, like, oh,
That's a lot of lost productivity. Yeah. So like the financial stresses dealing with a medical bill are, like, they should tell you just how much it drags somebody down, and just sort of, it almost consumes everything they do. They can't focus as much at work. They're spending some work time trying to handle this, even if they're not spending work time. It's just sitting there in the back of their mind that I have this big medical bill that could bankrupt me. How am I going to pay my mortgage and put food on the table and pay all my expenses? Right? Like that's just a pressure that, like, it's really, like, it's harmful to people, I should point out, but it also drags down productivity at their jobs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My name is Joao Camargo, and I am your host. And my guest here today is Braden Pan, who is the CEO and founder at Resolve. Braden, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here and chat.
I'm excited to have this conversation as well. Why don't we just start off with you telling everyone a little bit more about Resolve, who you guys are, what you do, who you help, and any context you'd like to share about the business.
Yeah, so at Resolve, we lower medical bills on behalf of patients. To date, we've helped thousands of people save over $55 million on medical bills. I actually founded the company after personal experience dealing with a medical bill, basically bashing my face against a brick wall, trying to get it solved, realizing just how Byzantinian and opaque this industry is. It's almost like it's designed to make people give up when there are issues with their medical bills. So I founded a company to solve that for people. And so we've been around for over 5 years. We've built out the processes for finding savings in medical bills in almost 90% of cases. And we're starting to build out AI around that to really drive automation to empower people to be able to save on their medical bills on their own.
That's awesome. And I think it's one of the things that from, I'll say as an outsider, even though I'm in Canada, so it's not too far from from it. But I guess everywhere, a lot of places in the world, when we're looking at the US, one of the biggest things that always come up is like, you go to the hospital and you have to pay an arm and a leg for it. Sometimes literally, sometimes not literally. But it's an interesting dynamic. So you guys are able to, how do I put this? You guys are able to, brace for impact and make that a little bit more affordable and helpful, or sorry, affordable and convenient, less strenuous on people's finances. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you are right that really large medical bills is almost a uniquely American problem, right? Like in Canada, don't have that. In most other developed countries, people don't have that same issue, but it's an enormous problem here. It's a leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States. And there's anywhere between 200 billion and $1 trillion of medical debt that Americans have right now. It's a massive, massive problem. And we figured out a way to help people brace on that, or, basically survive having large medical bills. In a lot of cases, people get these big medical bills and they can't pay them. Like the only option that they have is bankruptcy, and we're providing a different option. We average around 60 to 65% savings for patients, though there are times when we save 80, 90, even 100% per patient.
Oh, and what's the usual savings that they're able to get if they're trying to like haggle on pricing or whatever it is with the institutions?
When they do it themselves, or
where are you trying to do it themselves?
So that's a really, really good question. If you talk to people who have tried to do it themselves, you'll see a broad range, anywhere from 15 to 40%. We're a little more scientific about it, and we've got a lot of algorithms that allow us, if we're negotiating, to pinpoint specific price targets that we have for specific reasons around hospital collections rates, the cost to provide services, average reimbursement rates from insurance. And we've got a process for actually getting there by contacting the right people and putting the right argument in front of the right people that helps us get to that 60, 65% average and get this up to 90 to 100% in some cases.
Got it. And that's phenomenal, right? Because I think, as you said, it's one of those things where it can be such a huge detriment to people's lives because, like, as you said, like bankruptcy is a real thing, and people hear about it and they're like, yeah, I know it happens, but until it happens to them, then it's a completely different scenario. So how do you find the patterns of, or is there any patterns in how these medical bills are usually charged for these patients in a way that is, I don't want to use the word unethical, but maybe not the most sincere way?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I'm going to step back a little bit first
Sure.
to talk about. So we have three broad strategies for finding savings. Negotiations is one of them, but the other two include insurance appeals. I'm sure you've heard about how insurance companies in America deny coverage for legitimate medical
Mm.
procedures all the time. It's actually an
Yeah.
endemic problem in the U.S. It's we've got really good at filing insurance appeals and making sure insurance pays what they're supposed to. The
Mm.
second is identifying and finding financial aid opportunities for
Mm.
patients. It's not super common knowledge that patients almost always have financial aid opportunities. Most hospitals have a financial aid policy that will automatically give financial aid to people making up to four times the federal poverty line, which for a family of four is around $120,000 a year. So it's not nothing. And even for people making more than that, when you have large medical bills, you can get what's called catastrophic financial aid. So there's opportunities for savings there. But to your point, when you're talking about patterns in bills, right? So there are errors that are consistent
Mm.
in billing, like anywhere from 10 to 15% of charges in from a dollar value standpoint are erroneous. But at the same time, the bigger savings that we have is essentially negotiating the prices.
Wow.
So in the US, hospital pricing is basically made up.
Okay.
There's basically four buckets of price.
I've heard about this, by the way. This is interesting.
Yeah.
Is just to hear from a
Yeah.
reliable source now, but go ahead.
So there's basically four buckets of pricing. There's the charge master price. There's the insurance reimbursement price. There's the Medicare price, and then there's what it costs the hospital. So the charge master price is the list price for a procedure. That's completely made up. It's just pulled out. It can be anywhere from 10 to even 100 times what it costs the hospital. There's no sort of market pressure or sort of market based pricing mechanism. So you can get a charge master price for a procedure in one hospital, go 5 miles away to another hospital, and get the charge master price for the same procedure. And it can be 5 or 10 times
Wow.
as much, right? Then insurance companies negotiate with hospitals behind closed doors to get discounted rates. But there's all this horse trading going on there, and that's an incredibly opaque process. And the same thing happens where you can have one insurance company that's paying $1,000 for an X-ray at one hospital. 5 miles down the road, they're paying $200 for the exact same X-ray at a different hospital in a different hospital system. So that's incredibly opaque. You've got the Medicare rate, which is what the government pays for reimbursement. That you're in Canada, so Medicare is socialized health insurance for people of retirement age, right? Like we have figured that piece out, and but the government basically says, okay, this is a reimbursement rate that we're going to give you. Ideally, it's around 100 to 120% of the cost of providing that service to the hospital. Then you have the actual cost that it costs the hospital. So you've got these four broad buckets. A lot of how all this pricing is determined is really opaque. But what we're able to do is take what people are getting billed, see what it would have been. Like if something's getting billed and didn't have insurance, they'll get one rate. We'll see what it would have been if the insurance
Mm.
had paid. We'll also see what it would have been if Medicare had paid. We'll also see what it would have been if or just what it cost the hospital. And then finally, we'll also take a look and get an understanding of what the hospital can expect to collect on that billing, right? So hospitals also are not collecting a whole lot. They're collecting anywhere between 10 and 40 cents on the dollar from what they bill patients, right? Like patients don't want to pay. They send patients to collections. They ruin patients' credits. Then patients may have liens on their property, but it's just really messed up system right now.
Wow. And because those patterns are that was such an insightful way to explain things. So thank you for that, by the way. And when it comes to those patterns, is that also the same case on the patient side of things? So I'm assuming the processes and systems that you guys have to really assist them are very reliant or based on the things that you just explained right now. How does that reflect on the patient side? Like, is it usually the same things that they go through? So the mechanisms to help them decrease their medical bills is also very similar, or it is always going to be case by case?
So, I mean, it's sort of case by case on the patient. I don't want to say it's entirely case by case. Like we have built up the six workflows that allow us to find savings, and so there are essentially six key levers and mechanisms that we use to find savings in um, different situations. And so we run an analysis to determine the situation the patient is, and then send them down that workflow and use that mechanism to actually find savings for them.
That makes a lot of sense. And it sounds to me Like hospitals are your arch enemies, or they see you as the arch enemy, rather.
So yes, from what I just said, I could absolutely see how that's the case. I actually don't think that's the case. And with smart hospitals, that's actually not the case. And here's why: there's two broad reasons for that. So the first is, as I mentioned before, hospitals are collecting between 10 and 40 cents on the dollar from what they bill patients. It also costs them 5 times as much to collect from a patient as it does from a health insurance company. And when they take aggressive collections actions, like sending people to collections or trying to put liens or trying to put marks on their credit report, they face regulatory and PR risk to doing so. So they're in a bind as well because they're unable to collect from patients and it's really expensive to do so. But they need to collect something from patients because that's part of their revenue streams to keep the lights on. We're able to get hospitals between 40 and 50 cents on the dollar. So we're able to get them a little bit more. We're cutting their costs to collect because they don't have to take these aggressive actions. We're sort of bridging that trust gap that happens between the hospital and the patient, right? So the patient pays something a lot less than they would have. The hospital gets something more than they would have. And so we get to a point where any good negotiation, you get to a point where both parties are better off than if they hadn't negotiated. The second thing that we're doing is, as part of a lot of our negotiations for patients who are uninsured, we're helping them get on insurance. So then if that patient goes back to the hospital with another issue, they have insurance that will cover care. Hospitals would much, much, much rather bill insurance
That's
than bill
interesting.
patients, right? For all the reasons I said before.
Yeah. Huh. So they are not the enemy. They
They're
as
not
long
that.
as long as they are educated on how this is also going to benefit them, which it clearly will, then it's just happy faces for everybody all around.
It is, right? I realize a lot of people feel like hospitals cause the problem by billing patients for this. And in some ways they do. I think it's a little bit of an institutionalized thing where that's just how it's done. And so that's how people in the hospitals operate. And you get
Got it.
people who are really good people who want to do best by patients in a system that's actually hurting patients.
Very, very interesting. And I want to shift the thank you for sharing all that as well. Again, I want to shift the conversation a little bit now on the business itself, on what you guys are doing to, of course, um, increase the impact, but increase the growth of the company alongside that. What do you see are some of the obstacles that kind of can get in the way in finding a lot more growth for the company, and in a way also creating the education side of things that we just talked about, so that everybody kind of understands that this is something that is going to benefit every single party that partakes in it.
I mean, the biggest growth is customer acquisition costs, right? As a direct to consumer business, there's a lot of costs to acquire customers, and that's actually the majority of our costs, or has been to date, right? People aren't aware that a medical billing app could exist. A lot of people don't even know that you can lower your medical bills. Like, put it another way, if you have a legal problem, you call a lawyer. Everybody knows that you call a lawyer if you have a legal problem. You don't try to do it your own. You don't just try to deal with the consequences. The same isn't true with medical bills. You have a really large medical bill. It's not common knowledge. Oh, I should go find a medical billing advocate, right? And so it's not just a matter of us marketing, hey, we are the best medical billing advocates. It's, hey, medical billing advocates exist and you should use their services. And that increases the cost. So because of that, we started to make a strategic shift. We're moving more towards B2B. We've got a couple of pilot partnerships, and we're working through a couple of partnerships where we actually sell resolve services into employers to help their employees reduce any excess medical bills that they have.
That's very interesting. And when it comes, because so many, and this is, tell me if you agree with this. I think so many companies try to push that. Is it the square peg in the round hole, or round hole in the square peg? Whatever the order is. They try to do that, but the market is unaware. And I think that's the case for you guys as well, right? So they are unaware that this thing even exists. So they're trying to not force, but feed something into people that they know is helpful, but people don't know that it's helpful for them, or that it even exists, that it can help them. So it creates this disconnect of, here's what we have, here's what you need to actually solve your problems, but then there's nothing in between to bridge that gap.
Yeah. 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 I look, when people are presented with the idea of a medical billing advocate, everyone realizes, oh, that could be really, really helpful, because in the US, everybody has dealt with a large medical bill, even if it's like, I shouldn't say even if, like, it could be something where somebody got charged $500 for like a $25 service, or it could be something where someone got charged $50,000, right? I don't want to poo-poo the $500 charge. That's still a really large charge and can make it difficult for a lot of people. But there's this broad range. But everybody has experienced this to some extent. And so when you explain, hey, they're medical billing advocates that can help with this and can actually deal with this for you,
Yeah.
everybody understands it. Everybody understands the value. It's just explaining that that exists takes a lot of effort and time. That's why we're going to employers, because as what we want to see as part of what we call open enrollment, which I'm realizing you guys don't have in Canada, but every year, people in the U.S., employees in the U.S. sign up for health insurance. Almost all health insurance is provided through their employer, and so around September through December of every year, employees spend time deciding what health insurance they're going to get, and this is a really big time for employers to spend a lot of time educating their employees about this, and so we also want to be an additional benefit during that time so that an employee can sign up for health insurance and also allow them to sign up for Resolve on top of that because, as we've seen, well, you want health insurance. It's not a guarantee that you're not going to get a large medical bill in the US, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's it seems to be a tough reality for
Yeah.
some people. And how do you see the shift now to that B2B where you can of course have higher impact but also help the business at the same time with going to the employers themselves? How do you see that dynamic shifting from or the dynamic of educating them on that side of things shifting and also having to have those conversations of like, hey, I know you do this way for the since the company has been a thing, but now this is a better way of doing that.
So it's really interesting. You now have to educate two parties. Like previously, you just had to educate the consumer that this exists and Resolve is the optimal medical billing advocate, or at least we believe.
Yeah.
Now you have to educate employers around the existence of Resolve, how Resolve can actually help them and help their employees, right? And so there's value to employers. Like it's not just lower medical bills. While employers care about their employees, they also care about their bottom line. And so if they're going to pay something extra, they need to see an ROI on that.
Yeah.
So talking about things like the average, or employers lose around 1 week per year in lost productivity due to employees dealing with large medical bills. And it's not just being absent, but it's presenteeism. It's the stress of having that medical bill that actually lowers and drags down productivity for people. So when you can start to explain that ROI to employers, it increases the probability of sale. It increases helpfulness there. At the same time, you still have to educate employees because now employees also have to be aware that Resolve exists and that you can help them as well. So you do, but you've got the support of an employer doing that. And so you have the support of actually broadcasting that message to a specific population.
Yeah, I love the look really analyzing and showing the ROI of any decision. I think when in B2B, that's one of the most important things that so many companies forget to do is like, hey, look at how we're great at all these many things. It's like, sure, but talk to me about the value. Talk to me about what I can get in return for this. And I just want to clarify on that, on what you just mentioned that on average they lose about a week of a week of work
Productivity. Yeah.
of the stresses, right? Of productivity. Sorry. Yeah. Is that compounded per employee or is that totally?
Yeah, so that's across all employees, right? So if you take the percent of people who have issues with medical bills, take a look at how much productivity is lost there, and then spread that productivity across all employees. It averages out to about a week per employee of lost productivity.
Per employee.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Because
Yes.
because if you have 50 employees, okay. If you have 50,000 employees, like, oh,
That's a lot of lost productivity. Yeah, like the financial stresses dealing with a medical bill are like they should tell you just how much it drags somebody down and just sort of it almost consumes everything they do. They can't focus as much at work or spending some work time trying to handle this, even if they're not spending work time. It's just sitting there in the back of their mind that I have this big medical bill that could bankrupt me. How am I going to pay my mortgage and put food on the table and pay all my expenses? Right? Like that's just a pressure that's like it's really like it's harmful to people, I should point out, but it also drags down productivity.
Yeah, and I like that
at their jobs.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that because, like, let me ask you a question that I would assume I will know what you're going to answer, but what's people's most valuable asset?
I think
Or
it's their health. I think it's their
Oh, okay.
or their family. Why? What were you gonna say? Or what
I
were you
was
saying?
I was assuming you were gonna answer with time, but
That's a very good point. It could be, yes, it could be. I think maybe it depends
of
on the
course,
person.
yeah, 100%. I would agree with you. Health is definitely number one. Because of course the healthy man wishes for many things, the unhealthy man only wishes for one, right? So that's that. But the reason why I was gonna say the time thing is because so many people say like time is our most valuable asset. Time. But time is not. Attention is. When you're of course looking at those lenses, because like for those employees, for example, they're going to work, they are still present, but their productivity is not happening because their attention is somewhere else. So it's not time, it's attention.
Focus. Yeah,
It's
it's attention and
exactly
focus.
right.
Yeah,
But
100%.
even beyond that, of course, going even further is what you said, is the health, because if the health isn't there, then none of the other things can happen.
Nothing matters. Yeah.
Exactly. Wow, so interesting. I had two final questions here for you, Braden.
Yeah.
So we'll start with a question that I've been asking everybody, almost everybody on the podcast, which is this: let's say you had a magic wand and you could just wave this amazing wand to solve one thing, a challenge, an obstacle, whatever it might be in the company, that would allow all your revenue goals, your growth goals, your targets to be hit just like that. Something that you can control. That's usually just knocking on your door every single day. Is like, hey, solve me, and we can achieve everything else. What's that one thing that you like to solve?
It's scalable customer acquisition cost. If we can get that, we can make everything out figured out. We can make everything else work out. And we're working through that right now, which is part of our B2B strategic pivot. But selling to businesses is not a short cycle sale. It takes 9, 12, 18 months to sell to large enterprises, right? So there's still a cost there.
Yeah, the cost shifts, but doing it in the right way can, of course, improve so much of the ROI for the business in itself. I like that. And then the final question that I have here for you, Braden, is actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who you were. So, are you ready for the question?
I'm ready.
This is actually such an interesting one. So many times these questions like fit so well with the conversation, all these things. And I actually think this question is the complete opposite of everything that we just talked about. So I'll ask it anyways. And if it's just a simple answer, then we'll go with it. So here's the question: how is the macro shift from globalization and trade tensions all around the world affecting your business strategy?
So that's a really good question. That being said, because our business is a uniquely American problem, this shift away, sort of the shift toward protectionism and isolationism, just has less of an effect. Other than I think it's going to hurt the economy more. Unfortunately, we get more businesses in a down economy than an up economy because now people's bills affect them more, and so they can't pay their bills, and so they have to find other ways around that or other solutions for that. And so I guess we could say, broadly speaking, it it's going to trend, it's going to improve our business. I actually wish it weren't so, right? Like you asked a magic wand to solve a business problem. If I had a magic wand to solve a problem, I would solve the problem so that we didn't even need to exist. Like I think what we're doing is absolutely necessary, but I think it's unfortunate that companies like ours need to exist in the American healthcare system.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. It's interesting that one, you guys are of course solving a huge problem that is happening, but there people have no choice over. So it's added like, oh, they go for they have to jump off the cliff and like deal with the issues, or like, hey, maybe actually don't jump off the cliff. You'll be okay. You'll not literally, of course. That I just mean taking the huge bills or the less huge bills. So it's either jumping from like a 10-step stairs or like a 2 steps. Which one would you rather do? I probably do the 2 because then there's no pain there attached.
Absolutely, you can survive that. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe not the best analogy for me there, but it's also interesting that the question was literally uniquely for you. That is a national business as opposed to a global international business.
Yep.
Braden, thank you so much for your time. This has been such an incredible conversation. I've learned so many new things today. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you, or of course a little bit more about Resolve?
Yeah, so go to our website, resolvemedicalbills.com. You can learn more about what we do. We also have an enormous amount of resources for understanding your medical bill, dealing with this yourself. If you want to try to do this yourself, or if you have a medical bill, you want a free consultation, you can reach out to us, and we've got people standing by who will provide free consultations to anybody who reaches out.
Amazing. I'll, of course, leave everything down below here if you want to check this out. And if you enjoyed listening to this conversation and you want to hear more conversations like this, please subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much, Braden.
Thank you.